Hi everybody! Thanks for joining us for another Facebook Live event this beautiful Thursday morning. I am Jessica Carrier of the Joe Davis Conservation Foundation, and this morning we are here at Casper Bluff Land and Water Reserve. If you've never been to Casper Bluff, you've got to see this. The weather is perfect today, so today would be a great day to come out. So at Casper Bluff, we have over 85 acres of a restored prairie and woodland and oak savanna ecosystem here. Casper Bluff is protected in perpetuity for two main reasons. The first reason is its ecological significance, and the second reason is the cultural significance. The ecological significance here at Casper Bluff is mainly due to the restored ecosystems. All the ecosystems that you see here at Casper Bluff are restored to the pre-settlement conditions. So that means before Europeans came over here to what we know as the USA, this area looked a lot like this, with these tall grass prairies, hill prairies, oak savannas, and some closed woodlands. And these ecosystems are extremely important for all of the life in this ecosystem to survive. So we've worked really hard to try to restore this. It's very hard to restore these native ecosystems, these pre-settlement conditions, for a couple of reasons. One reason is because a lot of the components of these ecosystems just are not found here anymore. There are components of this ecosystem that have been extirpated from this area, and they're just not found in these ecosystems. And when you lose those elements of that ecosystem, of that food web, everything else in the system has to kind of fill in that void or adjust. And it takes a long time for everything in that ecosystem to kind of figure out how to work together again to make that biodiversity back to the level that it was. So these pre-settlement conditions are really important, and in the Midwest, where farmland is so easy to drive a tractor over, this is extremely rare to have these prairies around. So if you come out to Casper Bluff, keep that in mind. This is not common. Not common. So the Northern Illinois Prairie Enthusiasts are an organization that have helped us restore these prairies. They have been instrumental in restoring a lot of the prairies in Northern Illinois, and this is one example of some of the work that they spend their time on.
Jeff,
so,
can you tell everybody about your discovery this morning?
Oh yeah. We were just looking at the wildflowers, noticing the bumblebees around, and one of the bumblebees is a rusty-patched bumblebee, and I took a picture of this, and I know it's a rusty-patched bumblebee from the segments on its thorax and abdomen are colored specifically. Its second segment is yellow with a rusty patch at the top, so I'm very excited about that. This is an endangered bumblebee, so it's the only bumblebee on the endangered species list, so it's pretty important. So, yeah, the fact that we found that here is pretty cool. Yeah, if you come out to Casper Bluff, I want to show you this overlook. You can see the Mississippi in the background. This overlooks the Upper Mississippi Wildlife Refuge. And this wildlife refuge stretches all along the Mississippi from St. Louis to Minneapolis. And this is a major flyway zone for migrating birds. This is a great place to come if you're a bird watcher. There are species that travel along this corridor in the spring and fall that you don't see nesting here year-round. You only see them during that short migration period. So it's really cool that we get to live this close to this major flyway. So this river is also the reason why people have lived here on this spot for thousands of years. So that brings us to the second reason why this land is protected in perpetuity, the cultural significance here. So the cultural significance of Casper Bluff We are learning more and more about this as we develop some relationships with the Native nations who used to call this area home, and or still call this area home. And we have learned a lot about the presence of the people that lived here through a lot of it is through just seeing what's on the land. There are burial mounds that are found here, and an effigy mound that is here, and they're kind of all over the Joe Davis County area. And here at Casper Bluff, you can see some of the mounds, and there are some signs pointing out some of the mounds, not all of the mounds. There's over 51 mounds that were mapped out here in the late 1800s. The guy who mapped this out in the late 1800s, he was a guy who worked on the railroad. Called William Baker Nickerson, and he was an amateur archaeologist. He would come out here, and in his downtime he would just kind of explore the area around him, and he had created these impressively detailed maps on the back of the railroad schedules that map out the different soil types in these mounds. Now, the soil types is what kind of tells a person that, okay, this is what was put here by humans, Native Americans. So the soil type that's found on these mounds are the same soil type that's down at the bottom of the hill down here by the river. So the soil type was brought up to the top of the hill and was used to create these mounds. And the reasons why, I don't know. I'm not really an expert in that area, but we're learning more and more about how this area, how these mounds were built and the people who lived there, and the significance that these mounds had in their culture and community. So there's a lot you can learn here about the Native American history just in Joe Davis County. You don't need to go very far to learn about a totally different culture. So,
now, Jess, I noticed that you cannot see the mound here.
Yeah. Yes. So, through our relationship with the Native nations, mainly the Ho-Chunk, who currently resides in Wisconsin, we have learned that they've advised us that the best way to care for these mounds is to leave them in a natural state in pre-settlement conditions. So we don't mow them anymore because it's important to have these native prairie ecosystems or whatever ecosystem would be around those mounds. So we follow the advice of the Native nations for how to care for these mounds. So if you were to come out to Casper Bluff, you can kind of look across the hillside and you can see it looks like a small hill. So it is hard to tell where these mounds are, but that is intentional. These prairies are supposed to be here on these mounds.
How about the Thunderbird?
So the Thunderbird mound is the only Thunderbird effigy mound intact in the state of Illinois. So the fact that it's right here in Joe Davis County you guys are lucky if you live in this area. So the Thunderbird effigy mound has the same kind of soil type, and it is made in the shape of a bird, a thunderbird with its outstretched wings. And you can take the hiking trail down. It's just a short hike down towards the Thunderbird. And we don't mow right up next to the Thunderbird either. There's a walking trail around the Thunderbird. You can walk around it. It's beautiful down there. And when you're down there, it's important to remember how rare it is that these mounds are preserved like this anymore. So through our relationships, we've learned about how important it is to preserve the cultural significance as well as the ecological significance.
And how big is Casper Bluff?
Casper Bluff is it's over 85 acres, and we have over 6 miles of hiking trails here. So if you're looking for a great place to just get out and get some exercise during this quarantine time, this is a great place to come. So over 6 miles, and they're nicely mowed paths. Not a lot of steep trails, steep up and down. There's some hills, But for the most part, it's easy hiking trails, and you can go for a long distance. These trails actually also hook up with the Galena River Trail, which is a bike trail that just goes right down towards Galena.
Would people be able to bring their bikes up here, or should the bikes stay down on the river trail?
So they should stay down by the river trail because bikes are not allowed to be up on these the walking paths up here. So the bikes do need to stay kind of down below.
How about your dog?
Oh, so you can bring a dog on a leash. It's important that the dog stays on a leash, but you are welcome to bring your dogs out here.
And what are our hours?
So our hours are, you can come out to Casper Bluff sun up to sundown. The preserve is closed after sundown. So come on out, and it's free for you guys to come out here. We're a nonprofit, completely supported by donations, so we want to make this space available for everybody in the community because we want you to see how much of an asset it is to have these natural spaces like this. We do have a donation box right next to the kiosk, so it's always great to donate if you can. A lot of work is put into the restoration of these ecosystems, and this is not common. This is very rare. It's a beautiful place to come, especially today. Nice weather. So if you have any more questions, feel free to type them in and we can answer them even after this session is over. So I want to say big thank you to our sponsor, the First Community Bank of Galena, Apple River State Bank. They've been great sponsors to us for our outreach and education programs. And so please support them as well, and we appreciate their support. So thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you again next week.